This makes me so happy. I love this. Hey y'all, Adam Savage here in my cave. And I've got a one-day build. That's a one-day build I just did. This one's not gonna take a day. It's gonna take longer than a day. I recently made the Windsor Coronation crown. I mean, there's a lot of crowns. I'm not sure exactly if this is the official Coronation crown, but it's the crown that they featured in the show The Crown. It's the crown that most people think of when they think of the crown jewels, and I made my own set of the crown, and I'm very pleased with it, but it's temporary. I glued it. I did a lot of gluing. It's not incredibly well made. It got me across the line so that I understand the structure, and that was the purpose of the build. I didn't realize that at first. I thought, I'm gonna make a really fine and tight crown, and then I kind of wanted to barrel through it because this is frequently the way I imbue myself with what a build is going to entail. I actually build it. And this tells me all of the sort of topography and some of the pitfalls. Like, I think this ring I made too robust. I'll use spring steel next time, and it can be much lighter. I'm going to do soldering for the jewels instead of glue, mechanical connections for things, and I think I can make it lighter. And to be honest, I think I can make it fit a little better. But first up, I was using these plastic Christmas ornament fleur-de-lis, and they're not super accurate. They're perfect. They're like the perfect height, which is just about, what is that? It's about 4.5 inches total, about 4 inches without the little lug at the top, the jump ring. They're the perfect size, and they look great here. They totally do, but they're not accurate. So I'm gonna start by remaking a fleur-de-lis in Ren shape. This is a engineering resin. And I'm gonna make some vacuum forms. And I think I'm actually gonna make this whole thing out of aluminum, frankly, because it'll be a lot easier. I think I'm gonna use aluminum, some soldering, and a lot of gold leaf. Yeah, that's my current plan. So I have completed drawing my fleur-de-lis. Come on, focus. There we go. Please note that this isn't drawn using any natural ability I have to draw. I just kept on using my calipers to maintain the proper relationships and measure every curve and repeat it on both sides. And each time I did and joined it with a pencil, I got something that was fairly consistent. This was sort of brute force drawing, come on, focus, there you go. I made sure that these two curves were the same and that everything was equidistant from center. And as I kept on making the points and then slowly sort of filling in the curves between those 2 points, I got what I needed. And I recognize that actually I think this curve underarm here is a little better than this curve, and I'll fix that. But now it's time to cut this out and start to carve it dimensionally. Oh, look at that. I'm really happy with that. I mean, I got some little doodads to clean up, but I love how this looks, and I'm not sure I'm going to vacuum form this. I may mold this. I may make a mold of this because it'd be really easy to cast these in resin. And then I can make as many elements as I want. I may also do if I'm going to do this in resin, I may also do this cross in resin so that it can be as dimensional as it needs to be. But I am I'm really happy with these. Yeah, I've never tried this kind of thing before. This carving along these planes, and again, this isn't from something I really knew how to do. This was something I kind of figured out as I went. And you can see in the time lapses, I'm just following the lines. I'm just trying to get things until they feel right. I'm looking at it from every possible angle. And then I couldn't be happier with this. That's a really nice, accurate fleur-de-lis for my king crown. All right, I've made one more addition. I have used a Forstner bit to create 4 flats. I plan to use these jewels with a 3/8 inch jewelry back on them. They will glue into these resin pieces after I've molded them, after I've gold leafed them. And then those will glue in there like that. And there'll be different colors, obviously. And then I've got, hang on. These little doohickeys for the little singlets. I will probably pull those little jewels out and sink them in with a little E6000 or some kind of all-purpose, like reasonably soft glue. But I'm really happy with how this came out. I just think it's beautiful. I've got some, fine finishing work to do on this, but I couldn't be more pleased with my fleur de lis. After a little primer and some clear coat, I am going to make a mold of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a dam around this using this foam core. I'm going to hot glue it in, and I'm going to pour some silicone in there. And that will be a mold for me. Yes. So let's see here. We'll do 1, 2. Like that. See that? Yeah, it's just that simple. This is one of the quick and dirty ways we used to make molds at Industrial Light and Magic. So yeah, let's do that. Great. So now I'm making sure that this corner is level. And now that I'm pretty sure that it is, I'm going to go in and add some hot glue around the perimeter here. Now I'm committed to using my hand as a clamp for the duration, but that's easy. I'll go in and inspect this glue bead too before I pour the silicone. I'll double check it and make sure I feel like there's absolutely no place for the silicone to escape. Silicone is an escape artist. It wants to get out of any space you've left it to escape from. With our fleur de lis properly set up in a foam core wall so that I can pour silicone, I'm ready to pour silicone. And this is an open face mold. So what you could imagine is silicone will fill the space inside here. And when it's dry, tomorrow, I'll pull out what'll be a block of silicone with a negative void of the fleur de lis visible. And then I will fill that void with some urethane resin, some thermoset urethane resin, and I'll have the fleur de lis of my dreams. To do this, I'm going to use Douglas & Sturgis. They're our local casting supplier. This is their bread and butter silicone, SR 1621. I've been using it for 30 years. It is a great mid-grade, easy to work with silicone. I've got some, I got 1624. Wait, I gotta get 1621. I've got some kicker for this. At any rate, I'm gonna mix it up 10 to 1. 10 parts of this to 1 part of kicker. And then I'm actually gonna use my, this, which is an evacuation chamber, because when you mix silicone, as you can imagine, like you're whisking eggs, you whip air into the silicone, and air is your enemy in mold making. You don't want little air bubbles. They will compromise your surfaces. They can. And there are ways to work around it, but I don't have to because I've got an evacuator here and I'm going to use it. Well, I'll walk you through the whole process. I was confused. This says SR 1624B, but this says SR 1621. I'm going to go with this. I believe that's what this is. What could go wrong? Lots could go wrong, but I don't think it will. I believe I purchased this because In general, you're supposed to work at about a 10-to-1 ratio silicone to kicker, and it is a room temperature vulcanizing. That means that the reaction isn't as exothermic as it could be, but I always add a little bit of extra kicker, 1 or 2%. It makes the mold kick a little bit faster, and it's just a little bit of insurance. You should know that with all casting materials, your margin of error is about easily plus or minus 10%. Like you could get 9-to-1 or 11-to-1, you'd still get a fine mold. There is some adjustability. I've been using this stuff literally since the early 90s. It's great stuff. It's got a great durometer. It's durable. The mold I showed you a few weeks ago of the Star Destroyer that I made for Galoob, that is done in 1621, and it's still somewhat supple. I have yet to try and get a casting out of that mold. I have to work my way up to it. But yeah, I gotta get a cup for the mixing. Ah, right. How much silicone do I need for this? Well, this is a secret my mentor, Mitch Romanowski, taught me. He said, most liquids are going to fall close to the specific gravity of water. That is a weird statement to say, but the way he was putting it is, if you want to calculate how much silicone you need to fill this, figure out how much water volumetrically you would need, and then use that much silicone, and you'll be right in the ballpark. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to measure this out. Let's see here. It is 1.25 inches high by 4 by 4. That's pretty easy to figure out. 4 times 4 times 1.25. So 4 times 4 is 16. 1/4 of 16 is 4. So 16 times 1.25 is 20. So that's 20 cubic inches. Let's try this. Alexa, how much does 20 cubic inches of water weigh?
20 cubic inches of water's weighs about 12 ounces.
12 ounces. That's roughly how much silicone I need. 12 ounces. I am going to utilize the ounce markers here on my smooth-on cup. Am I allowed to use a smooth-on cup for a competing product? Probably. So 12 ounces, and then I'm going to add 1.2 ounces. Actually, I'll probably go to 14 with the kicker, just for insurance. Oh, right, I need a bigger cup. Do I? Maybe I actually don't. Yeah, we'll see. Okay. Oh, pristine. Also, in general, these measurements work volumetrically and from a weight standpoint. All my scales are a little messed up right now. So rather than measure these small amounts, 12 ounces, I'm just going to do it by volume. Yeah. I've got a scale issue right now. Okay, so 12 ounces. I'll use that to slice it off. Ooh, whoops. All right. No, I pretty much nailed it. Good. Great. Don't want any contaminants in there. Oh, this stuff. It's like gold. It's about $100 a gallon, like 78, something like that, bucks a gallon. You'll get a lot you'll get a lot of mold making out of a single gallon as a young maker. 14. Okay, so yeah, you always want to shake up your kicker. You don't need a mask for this. None of this is noxious, as far as I know. Okay, so I'm at 14, so I'm going to go to 16. That's 2 ounces. Yeah, that's more than a 10-to-1 ratio. Yeah, here we go. Okay. That's why I always have a little extra on hand. Okay, so now it's time for the mixing. And here's a rule of thumb about mixing. Silicone, can't mix too much. You can't mix too much. You can't mix too much. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You can't mix too much. There's almost no such thing as mixing too much unless you're mixing for hours and then it's kicking on you. The pot life of silicone is, it'll tell you in the MSD, yes, but you've got a lot of time. I mean, you've got plenty of time. You want to make sure you've pulled it off the walls. You want to make sure you've scraped it off the walls. I'm going to swap out this stir stick for another one in a minute so that I can really manhandle it. The reason the kicker is blue is so that you can actually tell when you are fully mixed. But also, I'm mixing in all sorts of air, and the evacuator will get it out. You can actually even see here the streakiness? That's like not perfectly mixed. And if you end up with some of that next to your hero part of the mold, it's not gonna kick. Yeah. I've had to clean, I have made molds that I did not mix sufficiently, and I have had to clean hero parts of the honey-like silicone that's on them because I was a dummy. That is non-trivial and a real pain in the butt. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of that. Okay, let me go to this. Yeah, this one. That's it. Yeah, now I can really get a handle on it. So I go all the way around. I keep on going. I don't work purely visually. I also work like statistically. Have I dragged it across the bottom enough times that I really feel like I've sufficiently mixed it? Again, you can't overmix. Well, I believe this is pretty darn mixed. There it is. Now you can see all that bubbles. None of those bubbles are good. So we're gonna put it in here. I guess, yeah, you should watch this. You can see the silicone in there, and we're going to close off this valve, which seals off so air is coming out of here. And there we go. The needle's climbing. Yeah, you can see the needle climbing there. And you'll start to see the silicone expand. And then when it expands, I'm going to release the valve a little bit and keep it from overflowing, because it can certainly do that. See it? It's like science fiction. Look at it expand. All right. So I'm gonna let it. So this is, I should technically have a larger cup than this, because it expands like 4 or 5 times its own volume. But you'll see here, I'm gonna let it keep expanding. This is literally the tiny bubbles of air inside the silicone being made bigger by the vacuum environment inside here. But at a certain point, it will collapse. You'll see it, like it'll pull out the bubbles entirely. It's really close to that. Just have to ride it a little bit. There we go. Now I'm no longer releasing this, and you can see it's like, yeah. Okay, so now I run that for a few minutes. And you can see I'm getting a full 30 inches of mercury here. Come on. There you go. You can see I'm getting a good 30 inches of mercury, and silicone's looking good. Well, dear reader, it's been about 5 minutes. I think I can stop the pump, and it still does that a little bit, but that's diminishing returns at this point. If I really let this out, and again, I want to make sure the air doesn't actually being released into here doesn't add more issues. But now the air that's inside the silicone is exceedingly small. The amount is very small, and you can see I'm releasing pressure here, slowly letting it down. There, yeah. Almost there. So, there is my mixed silicone. It's got a pretty good pot life. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm literally just going to pour it in here, but I'm going to pour it here and let the silicone move around the object. If I pour it around the object itself and pour it all over, I could end up trapping air bubbles in there, and I don't want to do that. I want the silicone to kind of work its way, rise naturally around it. I'm going to pour from kind of a high point. Sorry about the camera framing there. And slowly let it work its way around. And it just takes a little patience. I'll also go back in here with a skewer. There we go, working its way around the other end, around the top. It is now full of silicone. In a day, this will be dry, and we'll turn it out. We'll turn it over, peel it out, make a cast, and then we'll have some fleur-de-lis. All right, my fleur-de-lis has been poured into the mold. I'm about to pull it out and take a look at it. Now, the Instacast I used for this is an old kit, so it's not awesome stuff. It's quite brittle, but this is just a test cast, that's all. I mean, I may end up using this piece, but I'll certainly be casting up a few more. Separation seems good. I had no undercuts on this, and it really should be pretty straightforward in terms of the release. Let's take a look. Oh. Hey, look at that. Dude, it looks gorgeous. Excellent. All right, let's clean this up. This technique I'm using, I'll describe it next time I make a casting. All right. I've got some onyx here. This is a smooth-on product that's just phenomenal. I love this stuff. I'm going to get some cups. I'm going to use a very little bit of this. Actually, a very little bit. Hang on. That's 15 milliliters. One of the things about casting materials is that these resins can be hygroscopic. They want to draw water in, and that's not good for them. It actually foams them up. So I've got like 3 batches of old resin here, and they're all in that situation. So I'm going to get some substandard castings. However, I'm going to be able to make that all on the back side. So yeah, I'm actually going to just stir in this little cup here because I can. So first rule of thumb with mixing, have I done this before? 30 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just make sure you've stirred it at least 30 times, and I usually do it almost double. Scrape the bottom, scrape the sides. You'll feel it start to warm up, as it is, because it's an exothermic reaction. And then just pour a little bit into here. Hopefully this will not be too... All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it until it's just a meniscus of the resin. I'm going to spray a little bit of universal mode release across a piece of PETG. And I'm going to take that PETG, start at the bottom, and I'm just going to be contacting the resin. There we go. Now I have a nicely flat back. And put a little weight on there. And yeah, while this is setting, I can monitor the setting with the cup of stuff that I already have. And you can watch this. This is kind of cool how this happens. I used to do this all the time when I was working for Jamie. Have one piece setting somewhere, right? Like this. This is setting. It's thickening up. You can see that it's thickening up. I'm going to try and achieve a little bit of a magic trick with this at the very instant it is setting. We'll see if I can do it. Just gonna have to sit here and wait. Why, you didn't know my face was that close, did you? Now I'm going to be, yep, here we go. Come on. If I get this right, I can make it self-supporting, but I'm not sure. It's been years since I've done this trick. You only get one shot at getting this right. Come on, come on. Oh, come on. No, don't break. Oh. No. All right. This is going to be fun. Hang on. So, why make a second crown right away? Well, the first crown isn't doing so well. I mean, it's glued. I knew it was always going to be like this. All right, I have some aesthetic decisions, but that I'm doing that are slightly different than the original crown. I know that's cheeky, but I'll get to those later. Right now, what I have done is I spent a couple of hours in the house, just like while television was running, making measurements off of this with an aim towards adding the correct bevels that are around all of the details, the drop here, this raising, all of that stuff, and effectively drawing the helmet in one piece. And there you go. That, yeah, we'll make this available. That is for my head, and it covers, you see the four little thin strips with the holes in them? Those are for the fleur-de-lis. These are for the crosses. And to be honest, actually, I drew this thinking that the cross would be an add-on. I mean the cross, that part right there. I thought it would be an applique on top, but I think I'm actually going to cut it monolithically. I'm going to cut all four crosses out of these pieces. So I'm building most of the structure in one chunk. That's going to take like a couple, I think that might take hours, just fine. And I'm not making this out of brass. This is brass that is 30 thousandths of an inch thick. For reference, it's about 10 times thicker than one of your hairs. Is that correct? Is it 30 thou or is it 20 thou? It might even be 20 thou. Hold on, let me just double check. Oh, good goodness. It's 20 thou. So super thin and yet still really heavy. This thing is like wobbles around. So I'm gonna make the new helmet out of aluminum. I'm gonna do a paint treatment. I know that's different than the polished look of the Windsor crown, but that's how I'm gonna do it. because actually I think that this is aesthetically stronger. Yes, that's the thing I was going to get to. I'm going to gold leaf this crown. Right now, I'm going to lay out this drawing on a piece of 60 thousandths aluminum that I have colored red with red marking lacquer. This is already way lighter, but obviously it's going to have a lot of stuff attached to it. This is what I'm going to be living with for the next easily day and a half on this crown. This is going to be an extensive cutting out project. And it's going to use it might use a bunch of different tools. I might be able to do most of it with my scroll saw. We'll see. Laying out is first, and yeah, I'm going to time lapse this. Yeah, there she blows. That was really satisfying in terms of layout work, by the way. It's exacting, and I think I got pretty close. Here we go. That's the layout for the crown. What I've done here is I have added in the crosses. The thing is that this height, sorry. My apologies. That height is different than that height. That width is different than that potential width. Everything's a little bit, it's just required a little bit of finessing. So the process here is I'm now going to cut this out, and I'm going to use a few tools to do it. I have these long straight cuts, and these represent the 4 main straps. I want those to be nice. So I'm going to use my basket and my table saw, my sled and table saw, to do most of those cuts. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cuts. Then I'm going to come in with a bandsaw and rough out basically these 5 rectangles. Then I'm going to come in with a scroll saw and do all this fine work around the crosses. Then, before I start folding, I'm going to make a couple of 1/4-inch aluminum templates that will allow me to obtain this bevel on these curves and on the edges of, those are bevels, and I'm going to be hammering those in to this before I even bend it. It should be pretty cool. Still haven't quite figured out the balls on the brass strip, but that should be workable. Yeah. I love this moment. This is a crown in potentia. I always feel a little excited about this. All right. I think I need to replace the blade on my table. Actually, I could make these 2, 4, 6, 8 cuts on my table saw and then replace the blade. My blade is really giving up the ghost and crying uncle. Here we go. Oh, hi. Just a note, when you're making the table saw is the perfect tool to make these cuts nice and straight because they're perpendicular to this. I am not going to get all the way to the bottom of this because the table saw blade has so I'm going to get to like 1/2 inch above this, and then I'm just going to retreat. And I'm going to do that all 8 times for these straps. All right. So on that last cut, I was nervous, and it was requiring my hand to be close, and I didn't want to do that. So I grabbed this and I put it and I made the cut, and then I forgot that I wanted to stop the cut and I carried it too far. It should have gone to here and it went to here. It's too bad. Gonna have to do a repair. I have some ideas about how to make that repair work. Makes everything a little bit more difficult. This is it's actually it's something important to talk about, which is whenever the parameters change, double check everything. I was just momentarily distracted by safety, and in order to do the right safe thing, I stopped continuously checking the list of mission critical cutting. Yeah, on Mythbusters, at one point we had a minor injury on set because an expert we had hired to be our safety person was also on camera. And I'm not going to name names because it's hard to be on camera and talking about stuff at the same time as working with safety. And because we had that injury, we had a policy to never again have someone who was in charge of safety who was also on camera, unless they were an exceedingly specialized person like J.D. Nelson or Alec Jason, et cetera. And it's specifically because of that focus, right? I could choose to work on you got to make calls all the time. And it's really important that you don't lose sight. I made the right call there. I made the wrong cut, but I made the right call, right? I made the call for safety. It just happened to distract my brain long enough for me to make a bad cut. But I think I have the ability to braze a chunk onto this. We will see. If all of that fails, I can literally make this. This is the front cross. That's the hero front. The one I screwed up is literally the one in the rear. So I could applique it right on if I had to. We will see. As I am sanding this, I'm noticing some really interesting parallels. I played Texas Hold'em for a while. We had a home game going every Sunday night for a few years, my wife and I. And there's an interesting thing about playing poker is that one aspect of playing poker is being able to play any individual hand, of course, according to rules and the return, etc. But another aspect of poker is literally your endurance. And like the question is, after 3 or 4 hours of play in a tournament, do you have the ability to continue to show self-control despite the grind? And real poker players are. They're able to just keep on. And I found a couple of tournaments that I entered, after 4 or 5 hours of play, I did pretty good. I was conservative, but eventually you kind of want to make things move, and that's a terrible idea. Why am I talking about this? I'm talking about it because if there's one thing I've learned from Chris at ClickSpring, it's that you can remove a lot more metal with a file than you think you can. Every time I see Chris cutting like 1/8 of an inch on the other side of the line before filing, I'm like, you're leaving yourself so much work to do. And then I see what I do when I'm doing it to like 1/16 of an inch, and I'm like, I'm fixing problems that I shouldn't have if I was a little less tight to the line. And the thing about this kind of filing work is, like, I've literally proceeded along this outline all the way through, and I'm trying to not want to hurry now that I'm like on the back 6. I'm getting close, and I like that, but it's like, this is where you can lose focus and everything gets... Yeah, it's a little better. You can lose focus and you can give yourself more things to do by accident. That's a nice way to say it. At any rate, This thing is making some beautiful tones. If you remember, a little while ago, I made a mistake. In cutting out this shape, which I was really excited about cutting out monolithically as a single piece, I accidentally cut too far on the table saw cut here, and I cut off a little corner of this, and I made a slot in there. So I was thinking about ways to fix that problem, and I thought, well, I could simply trace the cross that is there, and I could cut it out. So I did. In fact, I cut out 5 so I could practice with one. Because if this is going to be an applique that I would make work on the crown, that's, I'd want to make that right. So I did. I cut it out and I played with it. And reader, it came out really, really great. I mean, that's just the very first test, but I got a bevel on all the surfaces that I want. And frankly, it's a lot easier to get the bevel on a piece that's this big than to get a bevel on a piece that's this big. So this is an accident that is a happy accident because I'm just going to slice all of these off. I'm going to slice the arms off. And I'm going to put in these appliques. Here's one. It's going to look like this. Doink. And the thing is that once I get that in, this bottom seam is covered by the big jewel that sits there. Then with this gone, it'll be really easy for me to get a bevel, a very reasonable bevel on these scallops. It's a process. You may have watched me do that, where I beveled the tops of each of these crosses, then one side, then the other side. Why did I continue to do each piece? It's because with repetitive tasks like this, I'm going to have to rely on some muscle memory. I don't want to kind of make this thing one at a time every single time from scratch. I want to kind of get into a rhythm. Okay, and you saw that I was able to build a rhythm. Da, bom, check, bom, check, bom, and then go. So I prioritize my muscle memory with a repetitive task like this. And in the end, I have 6 of these in order to get 4 good ones. I consider that a reasonable amount of insurance. Now, to the linisher. All right. All right. I have successfully completed 5. Yay. And now I'm going to trim. Yeah. I'm going to trim all those puppies off. It's going to be gross, but I'm going to use the Beaver. Now I'm just starting to make sounds. All right. Here we go. I had to do a little bit of Dremel repair, but I'm really happy with how those came out. And notice how my rhythm, I think it's instructive to see how my physical thing changed each time. I'm always looking for the intersection that gives me knowledge, right? So I started out trying it from the top to the bottom, and then I realized starting at the bottom gave me a slightly better angle on making sure I was attacking it in the right way. And then there was this memory of just trying to get this and pivot each one of these on the weird center that it was on. But success. And when this is all finally painted and everything, it's all gonna look really nice, really nice. I think I'm gonna do this one just a little bit more. I have been having, there's one problem on this Crown sequel that has been kicking my butt, and it's the balls. It's the little, so these balls are all over this thing, right? There's 2 rows on each of these struts, so that's 80 inches right there. And then there's another 30, 60. There's 140 inches of little 1/4-inch balls in a row. I have tried doing some soldering. I bought some balls that said they were brass. They were not brass. they don't solder. I thought about, I use glue on this, and that's why it's such a piece of garbage. And then I realized I had this 3D printer. And then I was thinking, how am I going to make little balls in a row? So, look, reader, I am sorry that it seems like I'm so rudimentary to this process, but I went on to Tinkercad and I drew little balls in a row. Then I uploaded that file as an STL. I barely deserve this printer, but I'm uploading the files right now in a flexible resin, which should make this totally easy. All right, so while this is going, can't really film it because you don't really see anything, so there's not really a time lapse to give you. But while this is going, I'm going to start soldering up all of the jewels. There are, let's see here. Okay, so I have laid out, sorry. I start every day with 2 cups of coffee. I have laid out all the jewels, and each jewel on the crown is actually settled on a little bit of filigree, and I found that those solder quite nicely. The filigree is like kind of candy cane colored on the royal crown. It's a white filigree with like little red details. I think I may, this is a lot of work. There's 28 plus 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. So 50 some odd. 28 and 21 is 48, 49, 50. 50 some odd jewels, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my God, right. No, there's 5. So there's 20 more. 70 some odd jewels to solder. I have been trying to do less time lapses in this build. I know that some of you like to hear me talk and opine while I'm doing the tedious work, and I appreciate that, and I'm trying to put that in. At the same time, I want to balance being able to listen to music and being able to zone out. There are times I just want to put a little less focus into both building something and telling a story about building something. It's just it's oscillation. There's just one little artifact here that I think is really charming and funny. So when I painted the fleur-de-lis, I painted them with a black primer and then a red paint because I'm going to gold leaf them. And whenever you gold leaf something, you want it to be a red base coat. That's just the standard. And I put them on a board and spray painted them. And when I did, they all moved a little bit. And what I ended up with, does this remind you of anything? It reminds me of every magic trick at Louis Stannon's magic shop in New York City. That's a very like magic type of stencil with a little bit of color to it. Just like magic illusion kind of thing. Anyway, that pleased me. Okay. all that being said, I'm about to solder up 70 some odd joules, and it's going to take me a few hours, and I'm definitely time-lapsing this. I love you, but I'm time-lapsing it. I know I said I was going to time-lapse these, but I've just, I have to solder up 70 joules, give or take, for this crown. And then I need to worry about attaching them. So I just did a thing on time-lapse. And what I did was I took a joule, I put a little filigree behind it, and I put a little bit of solder between each one. This is from watching a couple of YouTube videos about a costume jewelry manufacturer. And I stuck a 256 screw on the end, and it's soldered in beautifully. So all of the jewels of my crown will be mechanical connections. Oh, I'm so excited about that. So I'm doing 4 at a time right now, and we'll see if I can pick it up from there. I've got 4 jewels with a little bit of solder on them, and I'm gonna be super gentle about this. Gotta make sure I get the right side of the filigree out. This could usher in a whole new age of costume jewelry for me, because I had no idea. It's not that this is easy, but it's certainly, it's certainly simpler. Here's how this goes. It's actually, I'm just bringing in the torch until everything gets hot enough to wet out. There we go. We have the first one. Excellent. Second one is wetting in. Nice. Third one is nice. Fourth one is, dude! So freaking cool. Oh, and now because of the filigree, yeah, look at that. Oh, yeah, not as good as wing doublement, eh? Yeah. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do all 70 that way. I think I can do 6 at a time now. Okay, so time for the filigree. This is so much fun. I love the idea of this crown being super durable. I mean, durable, you know what I mean. Not falling apart. Yeah, I think I will break out the Super Sculpey, because what I've seen is that having a base of some kind of clay, and jewelers actually have a specific type of this thing, makes this way easier. All right, I'll do that on the next one. Barn door's already open on this one. I'm just moving forward. We're gonna do this in 2 stages, because I think that it'll be easier that way. Center, 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 center. 5 and 6. Wonderful. All right, let's break out the 256 screws. The nice thing is these filigrees have a design in the center, so it allows me to make sure I'm putting the screws dead center, which is actually a real bonus, because these, come on, I have a, it just makes it easier to make sure all my holes line up with where they should. Gosh darn. I mean, you know, I realize that these metals have all been formulated to make this process easy, or to make this process efficient, but I just didn't know. This is really fun. I like this method better than applying the solder, because when you apply the solder, you're touching, and I'm bad at moving my work while I'm soldering it. I mean, I do it, and I don't want to, I don't intend to, but I do. So this just allows me to get everything positioned just so, and then the flame comes in and does all the hard work. It's really awesome. All right, so clearly, obviously, I can see how much proximity matters here, right? Like these things all should be touching, and they're not. But oh, damn, look at that. That looks amazing. Okay, I think I can get this going. These are the last 4 of the strap jewels, the ones that go on the 4 straps that head towards the center cross. And that's, I've done all 28 of those once I've done this. That looks amazing. I'm really happy with that. I know I keep traipsing into other people's disciplines, and then when I see the comments, I see all these wonderful hints about ways to make my process better. So I look forward to the same with this video. Costume jewelers. I heard that Play-Doh works just as well as whatever expensive thing the jewelry store sells for doing this kind of thing. Super Sculpey's working well, but this is really old Super Sculpey, so it's a little less than awesome. We'll see what we can do. Oh my God, I'm so sure this is super crunchy, but it's working great. All right, see these? These are the little wings of the cross jewels, and each one of those is on a little trapezoid of filigree. I've got 16 of those to do. So, I have masked all the jewels, 74, 73 some odd jewels on this crown. I'm now peeling off the masking and, come on. There we go. Okay, so now the jewels are against a white background, and on the real crown, it is like a barber pole, red and white look. So I'm actually going to take this long red pen, and I'm just going to kind of just lightly add some red accents to this. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so that table over there is all of the jewels. I'm going to get going on those. In the meantime, the crown blank is mostly drilled. There's holes here that fit the fleur-de-lis. Those will screw together. I have 256 screws sticking out of every jewel and holes for all of these. The next thing I need to do is drill these holes, and then it's time to start bending this and get ready to paint it. Oh, very exciting. Also, this end and this end join together, and I have to work out how that join looks and works. But I can't do that until I've rolled this thing around on itself. Yeah, we're coming along. There's a lot more hours of work to do on this thing. Okay, I realized something. I can't, there's gonna be one more ring on the outside of this. There's one more band, as it were. And I might have to, put that band on and then drill to it. Yeah, I think that's what I gotta do. Because the spacing of the jewels around the perimeter, it's a closed system. With these, I can kind of end up wherever I want, and I did, but on this, it has to line up. So drilling the holes before I assemble the crown, That'd be problematic. Okay, it's decided then. I'm going to start bending. As I'm tackling each of these pieces of the crown, I mean, one is like, I'm astounded by the amount of labor, of course, right? 73 gems and, you know, countless little tiny diamonds and all these pieces to get together. But it actually reminds me of what the significance of its ornate design is, right? Like when you visit it, when you visit a church and you see devotional objects, what you see are, when I made the Leviathan X for my nephew, the axe itself isn't the present. I mean, it is, but the present is the time. That's what's so lovely about getting a gift from someone who made something for you, and giving a gift to someone that you made, is that you are giving them your time. You are saying to them, I spent time thinking about you. And the same is true with religious artifacts. When you look at them, when you look at the church doors on a cathedral in Barcelona, or you stand there in the Sistine Chapel, or in the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York, you look up and what you see is evidence of devotion, evidence of time spent thinking about something that's important, i.e. God, to people doing that. There's a thing that I love that I saw for the first time in the Tower of London, I think, has this in their collection, called a prayer nut. And it's effectively a little tiny carved nut with the most intricate, crazy carvings in them. And like, what is the craftsmanship and end towards? It's towards thinking about the spiritual, right? So the religious devotee devotes their time. And the same is true with the crown. Like, the ornateness of the work of Carl Fabergé and his workshop is all about, like, well, time is the expensive thing, right? Rich people can afford to pay people to make crap for them and spend lots of time making crap. It's ostentatious. But in service to the crown, it shows that the crown is almost like a religious. It's a piece of religious iconography, and of course it is, right? The Regency and religion are inextricable. They kind of have to be. So it's funny to be spending, a week of my time making two different crowns, and thinking about a shop that did this, right? The Royal Jeweler. However many, I think that this current crown that I'm replicating is from like the 16th, 17th century. I can't quite remember. But what it does is it says, like, this was important enough for dozens of people to spend countless hours making perfect. That's so a lot. Yeah. I just had those thoughts. I thought about the presents that I've made for people that I love and about the time involved. And I realized there's this great connection to religious artifacts and royal artifacts. I fancy that someone from the Kensington Palace, whoever it is that oversees this, the Royal Jeweler, I'd love it to know that they saw this, right? Like, I'm crawling over something that they live with, and I'm trying to do it justice. And, I'll get some things right and some things wrong, but there are some people who know this object better than, like, I can possibly imagine. I mean, it's also, for me, the process of replication is also one that is about the empathy and sympathetic vibrations that happen when you walk in another's footsteps. And even though I am not like doing precious metal work here, I am in the process of fulfilling this piece. I am engaging with the piece at a level that is not common, right? That's definitely, you know, when you've replicated something, it's in your head. And it's in your head like, you know, this may be 73 joules, it may end up being like 120 separate parts, but that's not how it's in my head. In my head, it's a unified object that is the sum of all the parts. That's frequently the monkey that I'm chasing, you know, that great feeling of having something fully extant in your head that's super complicated, you know, the Hellboy mecha hand, the alien spacesuit. Each of these are things that, you'll notice if you frequent Star Wars costuming sites that someone can post a picture of a stormtrooper and someone else can immediately identify the maker and when it was bought. From the tiniest details of kind of painting on the sides, the type of eyes, whether they're vacuum formed or not. I mean, there's all these little details. And the only reason that people are able to do that is because they crawled all the way inside of it. And it's the same way that like an antiques dealer has an expertise in a particular, you know, field they wrote their thesis in or something. Humans are funny. I mean, ultimately, I tend to feel, and I tend to accrete towards the belief that all the things that we do to occupy our days are because eternity is so crushingly boring. Seriously. I think that's exactly it. I think if you could be immortal and you could really understand what that entails, you wouldn't choose it. I really don't think so. Don't get me wrong. I'm dying to find out what happens to the world. But I also know that all the grace in my life comes from the beginnings and the endings. You know, that's what it is. I desire a life of comfort, but there's no such thing. Everything's unstable, so for many, more unstable than others, you know. But we are just finite little specks of carbon, and we don't matter. And I think that we do a lot of this stuff to kind of bulwark ourselves against that constant realization.
Oh, sparkle, 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 sparkle.
Damn, look at that. I've been having this other thought about the crown recently. It's an absurd object. It's crazy. This object is insane. You put it on your head and it says that you get to rule over people, or that's the symbol of your ability to lead your people. You know, it's not lost to me. I paid whatever, 20, 30 cents a piece for each of these little gems. And it's not lost to me that each one that I'm decorating represents a set of thousands of dollars worth of precious stones, right? A big gem set among a bunch of little diamonds. And, when you're looking at the history of Britain, years ago, the first time I went to the British Museum of Natural History, one of the most beautiful places to go there is the gem room. It's mind-blowing. And I was like looking at it and being like, wow, this collection is really insane. And then I realized, oh, right, of course it is. They've been stealing from everybody longer than anybody else. All governments do that. But Britain sort of, they've been doing it forever. So every one of these gems and the diamonds that surround it, they represent that imperialism, right? They represent the state and the state's power to go to other places and take what is not theirs, right? All right. Because I'm doing a sort of bending, I want to talk about bending metal. I've talked about bending metal on the channel before. I want to talk about it right here because what I'm doing is a perfect example of complex bending and how I do it. Thought I'd walk you through it. So I've got these four struts. They are going to be the 4 parts of the crown that come up and over. And I want them all bent to this shape. This is the template. I cut out a different template before, but this, it's a long story, but I made it a little bit wrong. It's fine. My crown's just gonna be a little bit taller than the real crown. It's not like anyone was thinking, I think it's a little too ostentatious. But I started the bends, but I just wanted to talk to you about how I do a bend like this. And I'm gonna come in here and get a little closer on the action so you can really see what I'm talking about as I'm doing it. So I'm looking here at the template next to the bend. You can see I've made this preliminary bend, and I'm gonna move over. So the template starts here at the notch. And what I can see right away is that I've got a little gap right here. There we go. I've got a little gap right here, and I want to get rid of it because with bending, if you go linearly, if you go in order, you can really, really sculpt a bend. Okay, so now I look at this bend, and I've got a really nice fidelity up to here when it starts to shift over here. So I put my thumb here, and I start to do that bend. And now I can see I'm a little bit too rounded in that. So I'm just gonna, it is, when you talk about death by 1,000 cuts, this is a bend by 1,000 bends. I am just continually looking each time. Am I flat across the whole thing? What can I do to get there? Okay, so now I'm from here to here. Now I can start to move to this bend. And again, I'll put my fingers there. And I just do a little bend just to see where I'm at. And sometimes that moves me a little bit farther forward. Sometimes it throws another part of the bend out of whack. And I just got to keep on kind of creeping away at it. There we go. Yeah. Oh, it's great. I find this process, and I always have, really, really relaxing. It is, you got to just give yourself over to the process and commit to just going slow. And I'm using like the meat of the palms of my hands to bend without, imparting too much flavor on the other side. This is like I said, I love this kind of work. This sharp bend is a tough one, but if I creep up on it, the other thing is that I end up with a proclivity. Because I've drilled holes in these, there's a little proclivity for it to bend more where the hole is, because that slightly weakens the tensile strength. Now, I pretty much never try and bend against a template. I know that's something that can be done. I just don't do it. Okay, so I'm getting a corner here, and it's because I've got a hole there. So I just want to straighten that out a little bit, and that's why I've got my metal brake pliers. So that altered things again. And this is a reason I've cut this template like this, so I can actually snake it around here, because I'm gonna have to go acute. Yep. There we go. Let's just see if that helped. Yes. Yeah, that brought it almost exactly right. So now along my bend, I am less than a 1/16 of an inch out from this template. There's still a couple, it's actually pretty darn fine. And I can see that, aside from just this little hitch in the get along, it actually matches the curve of the other two really well and lines up with them. Yep. And that'll be another way in which I achieve a kind of a parity across these, is to make sure that, they all line up straight up and down. That's how I bend. Yeah, it's way more accessible than most people think. That's I think, my takeaway here. one more thing about bending, which is, so here's our crown, the rough frame. I'm really super pleased. When you are bending and you're about to attach something, bend so that the bend meets. This will make your job so much easier. It's really easy to like bend and then these are like this and then bring them in and attach them. That's doable. I've been doing that for years, but I'm also, from my experience, I want to tell you, if you take a little more time and you bend it so that the two ends meet, it's just going to make your finished project that much tighter because you're not fighting the material. Yeah, here we go. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. It's certainly, yeah. It's great. It's great. What a ridiculous and amazing object. Riveting. It's riveting. That's what I'm about to do. Not that this content is riveting. I'm about to do some riveting. I realize it looks like we're on the home stretch, and we're certainly close. I mean, you know, we're past the halfway point. But at the same time, we still have to add all the balls. The balls are still printing several hours later, but that's okay. I am doing, this is mostly a kind of a ghost fit, as sort of a test fit, just to see that everything kind of gels. And then this is where I'm going to leave it tonight. I'm just going to take a look at this and sort of let this sit. There is a key difference between my crown and the Windsor crown, and it's that I have more jewels, actually. From what I've been able to determine, the Windsor crown has jewels on the 4 cardinal points, jewels on the fleur-de-lis points, and then 1 jewel in between each. But the various basic jewels that I was able to find are a little smaller than the visual impact of the real things. And therefore, I'm adding 2 jewels. So 4, 8, and then another 8. So I have 16 instead of 12 around the perimeter. These are tiny differences. I mean, it's not a tiny difference, but it's tiny in that almost no one's going to notice. And the real trick is like, there isn't it doesn't look like there's a rhyme or specific reason to the, damn girl, to the layout of the jewels. And I'm not trying to match them color for color by any stretch of the imagination, but this does help me see how it's all going to go together. I'm not going to do the ones in these because I know they fit. Those are all set aside. And the wings of the crosses also, those are simple. What I want to do is I want to get these in because I want to actually work around them when I'm gluing in the little balls. Come on, why aren't you going? There you go. I want to make sure I'm avoiding these when I'm putting in the rows of little balls, right? Yeah. So what I was going to say was the tedious work is where I actually do a lot of my mental problem solving. I sit there solving the tedious, just like working through the busy work of the tedium. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's great. That's looking really good. That's the hero front. That's the back. Still fits on my head. Yep. Okay. All right. Yeah, I know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up painting the whole thing red, and then we're going to do a whole gold leaf. It's going to be super fabulous. I'm going to let this guy sit tonight. Think about it. I'm going to think about what it's done. About, what am I into this now? Probably about 20 hours on this second crown. I like this example. I really appreciate showing you how I make this in like a few hours and this in a few days, and how they'll look quite similar but be functionally pretty darn different in a great way. In a way that jewels are just popping off. It's a nice example. Show two different construction methods. This is usually, so one of my practices in my shop is I take pictures of the thing that in the current state of relative doneness, I take pictures and then I moon over them at night. Because I just love seeing pictures of stuff that I made. And I get really excited in the middle of the build. And, you know, I'll be lying there in bed and thinking, well, what if this? Wait. And I'll pull up the picture. Oh, it's just the best. Meanwhile, next cut of this will be me refreshed on a Saturday morning. Whew! Okay, it is the morning, and the strips of little tiny ball details for the crown have printed. They're hanging from the top. Yeah, okay. I gotta anchor this and we'll figure this out. When these prints come out of the resin printer, they still have some resin on them. So I need to do some rinsing in order to be able to use these. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it looks good. Oh, fascinating.
Mesdames et messieurs, for your dining pleasure tonight, we have 275 tiny little balls.
Well, okay, so there's a little bit of, there's some failure in there, but I overcut these. Like I cut more than I need, so hopefully this isn't, I think this should be enough. I'm gonna do the math, but those are really lovely. This is the moment, and the moment is a really interesting one. This is the first time I have had a need for a specific thing and needed a 3D printer to supply that need, and drew the thing that I fed to that 3D printer. I know the whole world's been doing this, and I've been stumping, like I've been telling people how great this is. But for my personal practice and my personal way that I build stuff, I haven't really incorporated 3D printers on the regular into my build process. And that's been a choice just because of the way I like to work. And obviously I've used it in tons of builds over the years, Star-Lord and the Mecha Hand and other stuff like that. But this time, instead of farming out the issue, it dealt with it. And feels like, what do you call it? A milestone, let's say. Got to scrape these off the build platform. Oh, it's coming off really nicely. Wow. Oh, yeah. The balls are out of the printer, and I'm in love with this printer. I told you I chose the finest setting. I literally can't see steps in these. They look like manufactured, perfectly smooth things. You can see I have some failures here, but I have done the math, and I believe I have all the balls that I need. Let's call this molding detail. I have all the molding detail that I need with an excess of 6 or 7 inches. Yeah, it's that close. I may run a second print just to for insurance, but these are fantastic. They're sitting on their substrate. So next I'm going to cut them on the bandsaw. This is a brand new material to me, and I'm kind of curious how it cuts, how it moves, and how I can implement using it. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is, slice up the middle here. All right. Now, I've cut this piece because it's the one with the most wear damage. And frankly, this misalignment, where I put the form printer, it's on part of my floor that's a little bit spongy, and I walked past it, and I think it may have made the machine jostle. So I don't think this is their fault. I think this is my fault. However, that's neither here nor there. Now I'm about to try slicing this. Here we go. I've got some little bits of the support to cut off. And it's a little soft under there. The next thing I'm going to do for this printer is build a UV curing oven because it's not that difficult. I just need some, 405 nanometer UV LED lights. But in the interim, I've got this, which is an ultra powerful UV light, and I'm just going to use it to cure the underside. That is freaking fast. Here is the sample. It totally bends. This is exactly what I was hoping. These are basically 13 millimeter spheres sitting on a 1 millimeter thick, 13 millimeter wide base. That was pretty easy to draw in Tinkercad, and these are perfect for me. These I can glue because I can tooth up the aluminum and get some glue on these and lay them down, and then it's a self-supporting system. Oh, this is so cool. I'm really happy. All right, let's slice up the rest, shall we? The main structure of my king helmet is done. Now, I know I said I didn't like glue. This is a different application for glue. First of all, I toothed up the metal. Second of all, each of the lines of balls is on a matrix, on a flat matrix. So instead of each piece of glue holding one ball, it's holding monolithically the whole thing. And it's going really well. It's a nice solid grab. I did a couple of test glues with this and let it sit for a couple of hours and then pulled them off. It's very, very, very durable. So I'm about to prime. Oh, yeah, we're gonna prime it. This is the exciting part. This is where it all ties together. Okay. I'm so happy. I'm so happy with how it looks. It's got a great coat of metal primer now. It is solid. It is actually pretty darn light. I have made a stepped insert that fits this so that I can work on the engineering of the ermine collar, etc. It's done. I'm really, really happy. Yeah, coat of red. I realized I hadn't solved the problem of what goes on my head to hold the crown on my head. The crown is now primered in beautiful red. Oh, it's all looking pretty darn good. I'm very happy. But I have to engineer the head part. And what I'm doing is I'm attaching some Velcro. Come on, there you go. This is an insert that goes inside the helmet. This is going to be perfect. I have this piece of, I think this is a piece of a Cruella de Vil costume. That's where I was able to find some nice, soft ermine. That's the white with the black spots. At any rate, this is what goes around, right, underneath this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a little tube with this, and I'm going to sew some Velcro up this side so that this goes around inside here. And then on top of that, I'm going to sew the skull cap so that this actually sits on my head. Yeah. Get a headshot, shall we? Much better. Oh my God, so much lighter. Red King takes pawn. Did I uncover this at the bloody seam? Did I put this in entirely backwards? Oh yeah, oh much better, okay. Yeah, I was looking up close and I was like, yeah, see, this is much more respectable amount. Actually, it might be a little too little, but I can live with it for right now. Yeah, oh, it's got the dot right there. I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about this next step. It's for the finish on the crown. And I'm gonna gold leaf it because I like the look of gold leaf. It's not official gold leaf, it's not real gold leaf, it's fake gold leaf, but like, this is gold leaf and I like the way it looks. I know it's not super shiny, but I've been talking about this recently, right? Like, sometimes things that are too shiny are harder to see. The crown that I'm making, I'd like to be gold leafed. I have some really good metal leaf adhesive size. Size, S-I-Z-E, aside from being the word we all know, also refers to a thin drying glue that is used as a substrate for leafing. I don't know why. I didn't look it up. This is made by Speedball. This is my favorite size. I have used some different ones over the years, some spray-on ones. They're terrible. They're shite. Don't use them. And I'm going to be applying this one to the crown using an airbrush, because I want a really even coat. I don't want to see any brush strokes. The nice thing about gold leafing is if you miss spots, you can go in and fill them. But it all comes down to this. I must admit, I'm a little nervous. All right, I don't think that this is a proper setup for my work for leafing it. In welding, when one is learning how to weld, one learns specifically how to address the work. You want to weld into an angle and you want your tip to be able to move a weld bead down that corner, let's say. Well, if the angle's facing away from me, you can't do it upside down and backwards. Don't get me wrong. There are some welders that can do that with mirrors, and I have met them. Holy cow. But in general, the rest of us need to set something up on a bench so that our hands have access to all the parts that we need. It doesn't work if, a part of the weld is on the workbench that you can't reach. This is the longest way of me explaining that I don't think this is the proper setup for leafing, because I think I can do a little better one that gives me more access and more freedom to maneuver around this thing. There we go. That's it. access all around. It doesn't spin quite so freely as before. Much more ideal. And I'm going to put some brown paper here so that I capture the gold leaf that falls off. Here is my arrangement for the gold leafing. I will gold leaf. I will collect. Well, one of the things that's great about leafing is you can use pieces of the leaf that fall to keep on leafing. I don't need to talk about it in the abstract. We're just about to do it. All right. I thought I was recording. Gold foil. Gold foil is an ancient process of applying super thin layers of a metallic foil to a surface that has been prepared correctly. Criminy. So the foil lays down onto the surface and a very soft brush applies. And you just continue doing this all the way around until you've covered the whole thing. You get gold foil everywhere. And there are plenty of non-gold foils to experiment with, so you're not spending a fortune. This is from Speedball, I believe. The thing about gold leafing is it feels like you're not doing enough until you're most of the way there. The red undercoat both provides the right kind of color undercoat for the gold, but it also allows you to see where you haven't attacked it. And it's also, I've found, using a soft bristle brush, you want to punch it in, you don't want to brush it on. And the reason for that is you don't want to have too much contact between the brush and the size, right? The size is sticky, and if you keep brushing over it, you're removing some of that stick. It's like, sticking tape to your blue jeans. So you want the first contact with all the size to be gold leaf. So as you're doing it, you're looking for those spots where there's a little bit of like non-leaf. And that's why I've got this package at the bottom capturing it, because it allows me to come up and kind of go in and take care of these little tiny red spots. It's great. And there's a thing about it is that the antique feeling of it ends up feeling like you're connecting to a process. I don't know. Every time I gold leaf, I feel a real connection to, the makers of religious icons. If I was born in a different century, that may have been what I would do. Who knows? So now I'm just going in with a leaf and I'm like holding the corner over spots I can see and kind of just jamming it in there. In a minute, I'm going to try turning it upside down so I can get the underside of the crown. There we go. That's something. Airbrushing the sides, that's the first time I've done it. Oh boy, that is the way to go. I'll tell you what. The airbrushing allowed a really even coat. I don't see a single brush stroke. Okay, I think my fleur-de-lis are really well covered. Oh. Dude. Plus, knowing how durable this is, I'm super psyched. Like the other crown, I had to, every time I picked it up, something fell off because it was all just glue. And I knew I was, I knew the compromise I was making. I knew the stakes. I think from looking at pictures of the Hamilton crown, that Turing crown is actually 3D printed, which would make total sense. I believe I can see 3D printing witness marks on it. And honestly, if I was a prop master and I had to make a set of these for a touring show, that's exactly how I would do it. Very repeatable, very, it's probably on a per print cost. Not cheap, but way cheaper than having someone build each one of these from scratch like I'm doing. This is the expensive way to do it. The other thing that's great is that this whole thing comes back apart again, right? I can pull off the fleur-de-lis because they're just screwed on. The jewels are all removable, as is the soft parts. So I can fix and upgrade as I go. I know. Upgrade your crown? I don't know. I'm nutty that way. There's just no comparison between this and gold paint. I mean, gold paint would have sold in a photograph, but up close, this leafing, it has a veracity that I haven't found a paint that can really equate to it in terms of a direct experience. I'm getting tired though. My arms are getting sore from all this. I'm really, really pleased with this Formlabs printer and the quality of this print. This is, by the way, I printed these in the gray resin at a 0.1 millimeter or 0.01 millimeter resolution. I'm still getting to know this printer, so I didn't realize I was setting in motion a 12-hour print for the raft of these little balls, but they came out fantastically. Now the fun part begins! I don't know why I'm continuing to be so noisy, but I am excited. Okay, yeah, it's now time to start attaching the jewels. The jewels! Run the jewels! Let's see here. There we go. Let's, oh, right. Okay, I'll put that on last. Okay, those are the centerpieces. All right, and I need my 256 nuts and my washers. I'm putting washers on every one. Yes, yes. Do these actually fit? They do. Terrific. This is why you do it, right? Getting to put it all together, the most fun. Oh, yeah. There we go. There's a proper moment of truth. Let me zoom in. Sorry, let me just get a little close. Hey. Oh, this is way better than my other crown. And other things I never thought I would say in the world. I am so pleased. You know, it's a remarkable object, this crown. Not the one that I made, the object itself, the one that I replicated. It's fascinating because it's hard to take in its shape. And I feel like that's part of its design. Like that it's slightly different from every angle. And like the goal of this kind of dress is, I feel, to be a little overwhelming. I sense that when I see, you know, the royal family with all their medals and sashes and patches and chest emblems and crowns and finery. It's all to present this sort of like, yeah, and here it is. And the old one is still, well, it's not in the best of shape, but let's take a look at the difference. Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's falling to pieces. But I think you can see in the tonality, the way in which this one looks like Las Vegas and this one looks a lot more authentic. Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do with that other one. Oh, you want it? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm not sure. But I definitely know that doink, doink, doink. This has been Adam Savage, a one-day build. Thank you for joining me in my cave. If you've had half as much fun as I have, I've had twice as much fun as you. All right, time to wear it home.